It is now 10:06 and time for the Saturday Special with Michael Zwerling.
Griffin Queener.
That's me.
May I ask you a personal question?
Go for it.
Do you think attempted suicide should be a capital crime, punishable by the death penalty?
No, I think anything you do to yourself shouldn't be punishable by anything.
Okay. That's a good answer.
All right.
Can't argue with that at all. Dave Michaels.
Good morning, MZ.
Hi, Dave Michaels. What in the world are you doing here so early? Oh, wait a minute. That happens all the time. You're even earlier than I am.
I'm here early,
isn't saying
MZ, because
much.
we just got our shipment in of Longevity, and that means we have all kinds of items out there. If there's something that you were waiting for, I would recommend that you get down there immediately. I mean, get down here, where I am, at the Dave Cave, immediately, as fast as you can, to make sure that you stock up on whatever it is that you need.
Is a sale beginning?
If you want, all you need to do is say the word, MZ, buy two, get one free. Officially, it begins Monday, but we can do it today, too, if you'd like. You just need to give the word.
Do you think there's anybody who wouldn't like that?
I think most people would like that.
If there was someone who didn't like it, we should give them an award for being weird.
Right. Well, you know, either way, it makes sense to get down there as soon as you can, because we're going to sell out of stock. I'm predicting pretty darn quick next week. So if there's something that you want, whether it's Glucogel, OsteoFX, Arthrodex, BTT, the Healthy Digestion Pack, which is something that a lot of people don't really pay attention to. That's one of the most critical things, MZ, is how you digest your food and what happens with it once you eat the food, how it's being digested and being utilized by your body. The digestion pack is what you should get. And this week is a week to do it. This is the week to do it. Buy two, get one free. This is the week to do it.
This is a great commercial that you're doing right now for it. Mm-hmm. Do we have any pre-recorded commercials for the digestion pack?
I am going to work on that. You know, we do have, Jack and I did a 1 hour special, and we recorded it, and we cover all the Healthy Start packs, not just the digestion pack. We also cover the blood sugar pack, the bone and joint pack, the brain and heart pack. We cover all of them, what they do, the ingredients, how to take them, how to stay away from the fish oils. We cover all that stuff in this hour. It's a fantastic hour. We'll play it again soon.
So it's been played on the air?
It's been played on the air.
And is it posted somewhere so people can listen on demand?
Not yet.
Okay, well, we'll figure that out. That's a great idea.
And so, you know what I want to tell people about, though, is this King Calcium. You know, one of the complaints, and that's not really a complaint, but one of the concerns I get from people the most is, ew, they don't like the OsteoFX. Yeah. Everybody loves the tangy tangerine, right?
EWWW.
You're right. The King Calcium is a great alternative. We have a whole bunch of these in stock now. If you don't want to take the OsteoFX, because a lot of people don't like it, just take 3 tablets of this. There are 90 here, so this is a 1-month supply. King Calcium is what you want to ask for. They're about $30, so it's just a little bit cheaper than the OsteoFX, and you get all the calcium without tasting that.
Without any of the ew.
Right, without any of the ew. And we also got the pet calming spray. So if your dog is a little spastic, you know, a little spaz, right? He's always freaking out. He just doesn't calm down. Spray some of this in his, oh, no, not in his face. He sprayed it in the air. And it gives a calming scent throughout the room. People respond to scents just like animals do.
So does that mean it'll positively affect humans too? Suppose you don't have a pet. Should you not buy that? And
you should buy it anyways.
That's what I think.
Yeah, I think
good.
So too.
We think a lot. We think alike.
And of course, I have KSCO and Flight 1080 gear out there as well. So
fantastic. Yep. Thank you, Dave. Right, Dave Michaels and his orchestra. Okay, now, without any further ado, let's start the show. Yeah, it's...
A brighter day is here. Good morning. May we bring you cheer.
We've got time, we've got tunes, we've got time, tunes, and temperature.
Get up and go, it's today, you know, on KSCO Radio.
Hi, y'all. Welcome to the Saturday Special, November 2nd, 2019 edition. MZ is here. That's me. Yeah, you know me. And we're going to be on the air right up until 12 noon. Thank you for all of the accolades for the last few Saturday specials. We have put a little time and energy into it. I guess it shows. Stay tuned for this one.
Good morning. Now stay right here on KSCO Radio.
know about you, but I don't like to accept, leaflets when activists are out, shoving things in my face. Recently I was walking through Chinatown in San Francisco, and I don't want to be disrespectful or sound or callous or anything, but there were some people who were very concerned looking, and they really wanted me to read this literature that they were passing out. First, I refused it, and then I looked at there was a fence with a whole lot of graphic photographs on it that were they were horrific photographs of people who were sliced open, like what an autopsy must be like. But when I read more into the captions of the photographs, I was shocked to learn that some of those photographs of people being cut open were people who were alive. And apparently there is forced organ harvesting going on in China. And this is a very common practice. It's been performed on prisoners. I don't know what degree of prisoners. Presumably they're on death row and they're going to die anyhow, but who knows? I mean, but apparently there is this action being taken by the Chinese government, and maybe that's part of the reason why they were so flipped out a year ago when I applied for a visa to go visit China for 10 days, which I ultimately did, but I almost didn't get to because no one told me. I was traveling with a group of Silicon Valley, Bay Area business people and politicians. And I wrote down broadcaster in the space that said occupation, and that immediately shut me down. I was rejected. I was not permitted to get a visa. And no one had warned me not to say, you should have put down investor or something, then you'd be welcomed with open arms. But I didn't know that. And how was it I got to go if my visa was I'm sure you're wondering, Griffin Queener. Well, the person who was organizing this through a group called the Bay Area Council, it's been in operation since I think 1945. He went to bat. I guess he really wanted me to be on the trip with them, which they go on every year. I think there's on it. They're on it right now, if I'm not mistaken. But in any case, he went to bat for me and said, "Listen, please give this guy he doesn't mean it. He's not going to be broadcasting. Well, he needs to put it in writing. He's not going to be doing any business. Well, he needs to put it in writing." So I put all this in writing, and they did give me a visa. But I found out later that it was only a one-time visa for one entry into China, which had to take place and finish within 30 days, I think, which it did. But everybody else, there must have been 50 or 60 other people in that tour with me, and really nice, interesting, fun people. And every one of them, as far as I know, had unlimited 10-year visas. So anyhow, I guess the first near crime I committed was being a broadcaster. But as long as I agreed not to broadcast from China, they let me go in for one time. So, and we did a program or two during which I talked about my experiences there. And real quickly, less than a minute, I'll encapsulate that. I was very impressed and very depressed at the same time, because in Shanghai, I went to Beijing, I went to Shanghai, I went to Guangzhou, and it looked like I wish this country could look. By comparison, it made me depressed thinking that ours is a third world country, that theirs used to be, right? Okay? Because they had built buildings in just a few years, to accommodate like 25 million people, for instance, in Shanghai, in less time than it takes to get a friggin' building permit in Santa Cruz, where we are, or San Francisco, or a lot of places in California. So that was very depressing for me. But again, I was impressed and I was very, they treated us very nicely, but they showed us only what they wanted to show us. And of course, we didn't see anything about this horrific subject that obviously that we're going to be talking about today. So that gave me the idea for this particular Saturday special. So, pardon me, I asked Rosie to help me. Usually something where activists are involved, it should be really easy to get one or more guests to go on the radio, on a talk radio show where people can call in and ask questions and make comments and so forth. Not so with this subject. I'm not sure why. We'll delve into that. It was quite difficult to secure we have one person who's a guest, and he is on the line from London, I believe. Let's just I think he's on the line here. Ethan, are you there?
I am here, MZ. Are you sure you want to go on with this show? I mean, are you planning to go back to China or what?
Oh, oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah. I don't know whether so what you're saying is if I do go through with this show, if perish the thought of going back to China. You know what, well, Ethan, it ain't gonna kill me. It ain't gonna depress me so that I want to commit suicide to not be able to go back to China again.
Well, you can always change your mind, but you got to put it in writing. That's what they say.
Okay, whatever. Okay, so prisoners of conscience. Okay, prisoners of conscience or people of what's that term that I read somewhere?
Yeah, it's not a great term. It's what we're sort of stuck with because it's hard to describe you're just looking for a way to describe somebody who's not a death row prisoner because they're not a rapist, murderer. They didn't embezzle money. They didn't do anything. Basically, they did stuff that would be legal over here, like pass out leaflets. But over there in China, they're basically considered to be very dangerous and also useless. But their organs are worth a lot of money. So the fact is this started with prisoners, regular prisoners, and death row prisoners, and I'm sure some of them are innocent, but most of them probably aren't. And if it had stayed with those prisoners, I don't think I would have gotten interested in this issue. I don't stay up at night thinking about the prison conditions in China. That doesn't worry me that much. I mean, I've got to be honest here. The issue here is innocent people. Pregnant women, being harvested for their organs.
Yeah. One of my favorite movies, Ethan. By the way, Gutmann, am I pronouncing your
no, you can say Gutman.
Gutman, okay, great.
Yeah,
I'm sorry, but what a... Geez.
No worries.
Yeah, what a classless, host. Can't even pronounce his guest's name correctly. He's going to have on for 2 hours. Oh my God. Anyhow,
I'm calling you MZ. I didn't even ask if that was okay. But everybody seems to do that. So.
Everybody does, yeah. And all friends call me MZ, and you qualified the second I talked to you, and the second I read about you, actually. So. Tell us a little bit about yourself and your background, and go into a little more detail about
Sure.
how this became a cause célèbre for you.
I think it's got to, you got to start with what I'm not, because that's a very important question in people's minds usually. As you were saying, it's hard to get people to go on and talk about this or something, or maybe good people who are somewhat, or maybe people who are somewhat articulate to get them on. And I should say, I am not... obviously not Chinese. You can hear it probably from my voice. I'm not a Uyghur, that is a Muslim of northwest China. I'm not a Falun Gong practitioner.
Okay, Falun Gong. I keep saying Falun Gong is the only thing that I've seen repeatedly where followers thereof. And explain what Falun Gong is in a few words. It's more meditation and,
Yeah, it's a meditation system. Basically, they are a Buddhist revival group. That is the closest comparison we have in America of those 10 cities in the 19th century that would appear in the Midwest, and people would kind of, restore their religion through something that was outside of the established churches. And that is essentially what this is a Buddhist revival group. Their beliefs are very nonviolent. It's compassion, forbearance, truthfulness, and they do a kind of a meditation scheme, and it's very important to them.
Why is that so offensive to those in charge in China? What's the problem?
Well, they are an atheist country. This is still a Marxist country. People forget that. I mean, if everybody's like, well, there's this new China, well, yeah, there is, but it's basically they've taken the Marxist methodologies and just applied them towards if you like, a capitalist or sort of like a National Socialist system, essentially. So, look, they from their perspective, Falun Gong is threatening because it grew very fast. It grew from, about 6 followers to close to 70, 80 million in less than 7 years. That's one thing. The other thing is that it's not these beliefs, compassion, forbearance, truthfulness. These are not in sync with the new China, the China that is supposed to take over the world. Okay, that confident, rather angry and stern China. It is something completely different. They are a throwback from the Communist Party's mind to some sort of weak China, feminine China. I don't like to use that term, feminine. I don't mean it that way, but I'm saying that's the way I think. In sort of a shorthand way, that's the way they think about it. These are weak. These are awful, stupid beliefs, somewhat superstitious, and so forth. And they don't like religion at all, and they particularly don't like religions that spread from peasantry to the city dweller to the intellectuals to the top of the Communist Party chain. And that's exactly what happened with Falun Gong in very, very short time. Now, that is the...
Falun Gong hasn't even been in existence all that long, right?
No, 1992. Yeah. Uh-huh. Started in 1992. By 1999, as I say, it's about 70 million, according to the Chinese secret police's
over there
estimates.
or total worldwide?
No, total worldwide. I mean, look, the amount of Falun Gong outside of China is negligible. It's fairly small. It's maybe about 10,000, 40,000, 50,000, something like that. It's not that big. It is a Chinese movement. And it was also a Chinese movement that came in almost exactly, it seemed like, 10 years after Tiananmen, right?
Yeah.
So there was the Tiananmen Square massacre in 1989. And then in 1999, suddenly Falun Gong are very, very apparent in Beijing. I mean, I used to see them. I lived in Beijing at the time, and I ran across them, walking around in the middle of the winter, okay, in Beijing University. So you would see them a lot. You were aware of them. We didn't know really very much about them at that time. Westerners didn't. That's one of the reasons they got very bad press initially, because journalists hate not knowing what's going on. I mean, it really is one of these things, especially China journalists. They like to pretend they know everything.
Yeah.
And so that was a problem too. But the bottom line is, I've spent a lot of time around that group. As I said, I'm as religious as a cabbage. Okay, my wife is quite frankly, my wife is a militant atheist. I mean, seriously, am I that moved by religion? No, but I don't mind being around spiritual people. I don't mind it at all.
Did you grow up in a Jewish family?
Yeah, well, I grew up my father was more of a Zionist than a Jew, if you follow me. But, he was,
Zionism refers to the belief that the Jews should have a homeland, right?
That's right.
That's all Zionism is.
He fought in the war in 1948, actually. So he fought for Israeli independence. So that was a big part of his life. But so, as I say, I'm very comfortable with dedicated people of all types. But
including atheists. including atheists.
Militant atheists sort of.
But
get on
not
my
militant
nerves,
atheists.
sort of-
Okay, I got you.
No, except, sorry, did I just say that? My
Yeah.
God, I just said my wife's a militant atheist. Oh well, that was on the air. Maybe you could erase that sometime.
It's too late. It's past 8 seconds.
Okay, well, hopefully she won't hear this broadcast.
Yes.
The bottom line is that I spent a lot of time, about 6 months to 8 months, embedded with Falun Gong, just hanging around with a bunch of Chinese.
Just
Falun
because you
Gong.
were curious, not so much to become one.
I was writing a book, Then I said the book. They asked me what the book's about. I said it's about you guys, and they said, "Well, are you going to talk about our spiritual leader and our spiritual path?" I said, "No, I'm not really interested in that. I'm going to talk about what you do. I'm more interested in your actions and less interested in your words. I'm more interested in what the Chinese Communist Party does and rather than what they say in their documents." And that's what I did, was write a book about what people do and their individual personalities and their stories. To me, human rights has got to really be about human beings. It can't be about a bunch of documents. Okay. And it has to be, of course, based on good evidence, but a lot of that evidence can come from the individual out there. They have stories to tell. People who get to the gates of hell and make it back, they have something they want to tell you, usually. And so that was my theory, and I spent 7 years on that book, The Slaughter. It just changed, publisher just changed hands, so it's very expensive right now, but you can buy it on Amazon. You can buy the e-edition on Amazon for $10, I think, or something.
That's not very expensive. Oh, you were just
it's
being
not bad.
tongue-in-cheek. See.
No, I don't know. I'm not being tongue-in-cheek. I think that's a good deal. I wish the hard...
You said not very expensive. I thought you said it's very expensive. Excuse me.
No,
pardon
it's
me.
$10. It's
Right.
$10. It's like a big, it's like a Big Mac and a Happy Meal. I mean, it's not that much. It's a
Right.
good book. It's a good read. I actually wrote it to make something that people could read, not just that they'd. How the internet has changed everything. People don't read books much anymore, and instead they sort of carry them around like Mao's book of quotations and sort of shake them at each other. But it was meant to be read. There's a good story. There are good stories in there, and you can tell that I'm very interested in the actual individual and people side of this. But that is what happened with Falun Gong. They were also very stubborn. They did not want to change their beliefs. They did not want to go along with some sort of watered-down version of their religion. So the Chinese Communist Party promptly, for Western consumption, called them a cult. And the funny thing about that, and they're very sensitive to that. And they're sort of saying, like, well, don't ever call us a sect, for example. And I said, what do you mean? America was founded by a sect, right? I mean, the Pilgrims were a sect, right? There's nothing evil about that. They wanted religious freedom. They went to a new country to get it.
Right.
There's a lot of the issues that you will see with the activists are sort of really Chinese issues, okay? They're not American issues.
Okay.
And it's taken them a long time. These people are mainland Chinese. They are Han Chinese. It has taken them a very long time. A lot of them are older. It's taken them a very long time to figure out how to deal with the West, right? And they're very used to Chinese propaganda systems, and some of them will never speak in a way that doesn't sound like propaganda to us. So that's one of their weak sides. Yeah?
Sure. Makes sense to me.
Yeah. But that's what we're looking at there. It is a group that in 1999, that out of the blue, the Chinese Communist Party just declared them illegal, and that was it.
Are there other similar groups that are not
Yes.
dissimilar that are declared illegal and that they're harvesting organs from?
There are, and you actually hit the jackpot in some ways, because as a writer, I was the first one to expose that the Tibetans had also been certainly examined for their organs and had many disappearances, so that the Tibetan monks have been used. We don't know at what scale. We
have been trying to get the Dalai Lama on the Saturday Special. And,
well, then you can really forget about going to China.
Yeah, for sure. There is a connection. Yeah, our next door neighbor here to the radio station is Dalai's personal videographer. So
I see.
there is some chance that we might be able to do that, but we're not holding our breath. So.
Well, if you get him on MZ, please ask him about this issue because we brought it to him. But I have the feeling that he doesn't want to bring it up with the Chinese because it's just too much of a third rail here.
Yeah.
Once you start saying, look, you're harvesting our people for their organs, you're killing them while they're still alive, how do you negotiate after that? It makes it all very difficult, doesn't it? Now, it is also true that some house Christians have been harvested for their organs, at least the Eastern Lightning Group, Church of Almighty God, they're sometimes called, which is a rather somewhat eccentric group in China. But they are Christians, and they have certainly been examined along with Falun Gong. And then finally, and this is the big one, is the Uyghurs. So the Uyghurs are a Muslim Turkic people. They're not all Muslims. They're mostly Muslims, but they're Turkic. They speak a completely different language that's far more somebody from Istanbul can understand them much better than somebody in Beijing, right? And they look Turkic, or at least to me, I don't really even barely see the resemblance to Chinese anymore with them. And the Chinese have started with the Uyghurs. It was first political prisoners that were harvested for their organs back in the 90s were Uyghurs. And then it's now ending with the Uyghurs, or at least that has become the new big source, because there are now 1.5 million Uyghurs out of a 15 million people population who are in camps, concentration camps in China.
Okay, we've never, I don't know, been in the talk radio business for going on 29 years now, officially.
Yeah.
And I don't think we've ever discussed this topic. And it's a fascinating topic about organ donation. Now, not this forced organ donation. That's a totally different thing here. But every state I believe of has an organ donation thing through their DMV. Am I right? You know, where you check.
That is correct. Yeah,
and
correct.
Does that system not work? I guess it doesn't.
No, it works. It doesn't work that well because accidents are accidents, okay? A lot of things go wrong in an accident. I have a cousin who got an organ, a new lung, right? And just last year, and I'm so happy to see him alive. He's one of my favorite guys in the whole world. You know, he got it from a drug overdose. That's how he got his organ. You know, he had to fly down to New York City from Vermont very, very quickly. And he was able to get it, and he's recovering quite nicely. Okay.
So he still has his own one lung, and this was a second one that was to replace a bad one.
It was a second. Yeah, that's correct. And now he, you know, I mean, look, we have. They say about 5% of the organs in America come from traffic fatalities, automotive fatalities. You know.
Okay.
It's about that, about 5%. Maybe some people claim 10%. It's a little vague, but it's not a high number because, you know, once you've gotten through with the jaws of life and everything else, those organs start deteriorating very, very fast.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's one of the big problems here is organs don't, once that heartbeat stops, those organs, they are very, very limited in what you can do with them. And unless they're sort of being, you know, various medical techniques, using perfusion fluids or injecting oxygen into them in various ways, you can't use them. The Chinese broke that system in a very simple way. They said, okay, what we're going to do is we're going to kill these people while they're still alive. That is, we're going to take out their organs while the heart is still beating, right? We're going to preserve that life till the very end, and the very last thing to leave will be the heart, right?
Uh-huh.
So you know, kidneys, liver. Obviously, once you get to the lungs, the life support goes crazy and it pretty much stops. But you can get the lungs out, and then the heart, and then you've got these major organs. Can I give you some prices at this point? You want to talk?
Please, yeah.
Okay, so you want to get
not that I'm at all interested in this business, but
well, I am. I'm missing a spleen, and China's the only place I can go to get one. But what if I'm caught? You know, well, that'd be a scandal. No, I don't know. It'd be terrible. That'd be a terrible scandal. But leaving aside the fact that it'd be immoral, it certainly could be a scandal. Now, the fact is, I think a spleen goes for as low as 40,000. But Yeah, okay, so kidneys are about 80,000, 90,000, and the liver goes for usually 110 these days. The lungs, each lung is 150,000, and the heart is kind of like a seasonal price. So you can get you can go as high as 200. And if you're bad at negotiating, like a lot of people from other countries are, like the Japanese hate to negotiate with the Chinese, then they really do.
Because you never know what they're thinking.
Yeah, you never know what they're thinking. They hate to negotiate in general, and so they go over these big tour groups, which sort of makes
a negotiation tour group, huh?
Yeah, negotiation tour group, which kind of handles the whole thing. But I think they pay a lot more. They pay like $250,000 for a heart or something like that. The South Koreans cut a better deal. They go over hospital to hospital, and they a lot of people going from South Korea. Taiwanese really know how to cut a deal because they speak the language. And so they don't even bother with, there's nobody to set it up. They just Google
And
it.
there's their past history as well.
Yeah, that's right. So Americans, I don't know quite that much about Americans. Not really sure, but I would say...
You sound like you're at least a former American.
I am an American. I'm an American citizen. I'm a British citizen, too. I've got both.
Wow. So how did that happen, and how did you land there in London where you speak to us?
No, it's not that interesting. It's not that interesting.
Never mind. You decide.
My wife got a job here, and I'm a writer, so I can kind of go anywhere, and London's not a bad place to be.
Is it true that it's more expensive even than San Francisco or
No, it's really
Manhattan?
horrible. Okay, that's really horrible. I always say, like, if you like, people ask me, do you like London? I say, do you like Christmas? And they go, yeah, I like Christmas. I say, so do I, but I don't like spending money like it's Christmas all year round. That's basically the deal with London. So it's ridiculously expensive, but it's a great city, and it's got interesting people from all over the world here. So
last time I spent any time in London was 1985. So 34 years ago. Yeah, for sure.
It's changed a little bit. It's really pretty interesting place these days. At any rate, so that's where I've been. I still go back to the States as often as I can. And I intend to retire in Vermont, which is where I'm really from, and that's what I really miss, is the countryside and the big sky and having a car and all that stuff. So anyways, the bottom line is this is a big industry. Okay. So if Chinese are running what we estimate to be about 60,000 transplants per year to 100,000 transplants per year, that's our estimate. We made that in 2016. It was based on a 700-page report that we sort of went through, about 50 hospitals approximately in detail, and we're able to extrapolate from that some figures. And when you start thinking about it that way, you're looking at something that's like a $10 billion to $20 billion industry. Significant. You there?
Yes, I'm here. I'm sorry.
No problem. So it's big. This is surprisingly big. Now, America can do. America is the second biggest, but we've got of course, a huge population.
Now, what about growing organs? Using stem cells and stuff like that. How real is that? And
I think it's real. I think it'll happen. I think this will be someday kind of a historical footnote, but it's not now. It's kind of like saying,
they have farmed fresh fish all over the place. I mean, fresh fish.
Yeah, well, yeah. There's business with the pigs, and there's a lot of different. I mean, I believe they'll be printing these things out at some point. But,
on a 3D printer. Yes.
Well, yeah, that would be my guess. But
actually, I did hear something about that. Yeah. Boy,
yeah,
that
but they're
would be
not
wonderful.
there. It would be wonderful, but we're not there now.
Well,
and the problem here, there's a sort of a deeper thing. There's one thing I'd just like to add here. China's real ambition here is not to harvest the organs of innocent people. If you look at the Chinese national interest, it is to dominate pharmaceuticals. That is what they want. And they're in kind of a fix because pharmaceuticals essentially it's an industry based on confidence. You have to have medical confidence that these drugs are, there's ethical standards and people are very careful. And there's something like the FDA, which is overseeing the testing and making sure a drug doesn't go to market before its time. Now, China's trying to kind of leapfrog over all of that. But the problem they've run into in this organ harvesting business is that enough evidence has come out that most of the medical world is beginning to sense they're really doing this. They really are. I mean, this started as a kidney in the bathtub story, MZ. I mean, this was where we were back in 2006 when the story first emerged. That was 13 years ago. And even I didn't believe it for about 3 years. Until I'd done serious research and gone out and done serious interviews all over the world, and I started running into this. And it was unplanned. I was just going to write about sort of Chinese, the Falun Gong movement and the state's reaction to Falun Gong and all that. And then I started running into these witnesses who would tell me about these bizarre examinations, which made no sense in context, and were clearly aimed just at the retail organs, okay? That is, they wouldn't even bother looking at other. They wouldn't give them proper physicals, right? The best example I can give you, MZ, is your eyes. You know, your eyes are worth about $30,000. The two corneas.
Yeah.
Yeah. So those two corneas can be removed. They're not an organ.
What else besides the cornea of the eye is
Nothing
usable?
Not really much else, but the corneas are genuinely can be transplanted.
Sure, for many years now. So, when I was a little kid, they were doing that. Yeah,
that's right. That's right. So it's been around for a while. And one of the things that a woman described to me, and this was in Toronto, and she'd just gotten out of labor camp in China, and she was this very appealing kind of very country Chinese woman, and she said, oh, they tortured me and they did this and they did that. And I was like, yeah, okay. And at one point she mentioned, then they gave me this physical examination. They kind of pulled her back and sort of said, well, let's hear more about this physical examination. And she was like, she started looking at me. I kept asking questions about it. And she was looking at me like, you're an idiot. I'm telling you about being tortured nearly to death, right? I'm telling you about the destruction of my family and, how I, my religious experience, my spiritual battle in this labor camp. And you want to talk about a physical examination, right? And I was like, well, but what was amazing was she described an eye exam, which had no other reason other than to look at her corneas. In other words, they weren't interested in her actual vision.
Or the visual acuity, yeah.
Yeah, they weren't interested in her peripheral vision. They weren't interested in her focus. They weren't interested in her doing an eye chart. They just wanted to see if the corneas could be transplanted. And that's when, I got a chill up my spine and sort of went, oh, my God, this is real. This is the real thing. And because she was so resistant, and that is catnip to an investigative reporter, really, which is what I am. So when you get an unvarnished account like that, where the person's actually resistant to you, they're like a fish on a line, and they're just, don't even want to talk about it. Boy, that's interesting. And I remember that moment for the rest of my life, and all I've tried to do for readers is to replicate that moment, right? Where you sort
Why
of go,
was
oh my
she
God.
being examined?
She was Falun Gong. They wanted to kill her and harvest her organs.
But they didn't. How did she escape?
She probably, my guess is I didn't ask the right questions. She probably had gotten hepatitis at some point, which pretty much rules her out. Or she had some other medical problem, which made her not worthy of being harvested. The other thing that may have happened is that they didn't harvest everybody who was Falun Gong. If you had said you'd be willing to sign a statement, right, saying Falun Gong was really evil, and here's all my friends who are in Falun Gong, and here's all their names, and here's where they live. And, I love the Communist Party. If you're willing to sign that statement and then make a videotape saying the same thing, they will let you go. And they were letting people go at that time. So it's very possible that she signed some sort of statement. She didn't talk to me about that. This is where things get kind of slippery, because Chinese people kind of have learned to live in a society where people lie and always present their best face, no matter what. So I don't really know exactly what happened there. And I wasn't really interested in the question because I thought she was too old.
Yeah. Because
she was my age, but I was wrong about that. This is something I misunderstood, was that you can actually do it with a fairly older person. This is a sloppy business. None of us are perfect, and I'm hardly perfect. These people suffering out in China deserve something much better than me investigating this, but this is what they got. It's like, sorry, you deserved it. You should have gotten a Spielberg or something like that, but you got me. So
you're fine.
They'll do all right. Yeah. So the point is that this was a turning point from my understanding, where I started starting to look into it. I still had no sense of the scale, if this was big or small or just something that a few doctors had done or a few hospitals had been involved in. But over time, we started realizing this was the organ source for China, not the prisoners anymore. They weren't even using the prisoners anymore. This was a healthy source. These people don't drink. They don't smoke. That's part of their religion, right? Mm-hmm. And, they do this very healthy Qigong, okay? They do this nice, healthy exercise movement. So to the Chinese, these were very, very good organs. And there were a lot of them. I mean, there was 500,000 to 1 million Falun Gong in the labor camps and other detention centers at any given time for about 10 years. So,
do they still exist today, larger than ever?
Yes, they do. They do, but not larger than ever. I think they've been worn down. I think there's been attrition. I think people have gotten old. I think some people have just given up. Now they're beginning to use the Uyghurs. And there's an interesting aspect there, too, because the main customers for the Uyghurs, and we can't say this with I don't have verification for this yet, but anecdotally, what I'm picking up is that the Saudis they don't want pork eaters, right? They don't want to get organs from people who eat pork. So they want the Uyghurs because the Uyghurs are Muslim.
Yeah.
So these Uyghurs, this group, this unfortunate group that is inside the Chinese borders since 1949, are basically a captive population. And there's 1.5 million of them in concentration camps. And they've all been blood tested. The entire Uyghur population was blood tested 2 years ago. And that means they can tissue match them. That is, they are all eligible to be organ donors, right? Mm-hmm. And that was down all the way to 12-year-olds, okay? All the way from, 100-year-olds to 12-year-olds. And that is a very, very frightening. That's where we're getting into something that feels like science fiction to me.
Well, even if it's an old person who's being killed for their organ while they're still alive, my God. I can't think of anything more barbarian than that. Can you? Well, I guess what separates it is, my estimate on the casualties, I don't have a good one. But my guess is that it's about 200,000, 250,000, 300,000, something like that over time. So approximate, but it's a very slow burn, okay? So we're, going all the way back to 1997 here. Now, that's not big. That's like, Civil War in Syria kind of numbers, right? Yeah.
300,000, something like that. So I don't think it's the numbers so much. I think it's the fact that we haven't seen medical corruption like this since the Nazis. I mean, we really haven't. Yeah. The only thing that comes close is the Soviet psychiatrists in the Soviet Union. If you disagreed with the government and you put something out there, they said, "Oh, you're schizophrenic. Here, you go in the mental hospital. They torture you there," right? And that went on all the way to the end of the Soviet Union. And that was a grave medical corruption. But this is really up there. I mean, this is taking the most respected members of society, the doctors, and it's turning them into butchers.
Yeah, that's right. I was going to say executioners, but they're that too. They're more butchers because that's more what butchers do. Okay, we haven't opened the phone lines, but we might as well because we have a caller on line one. If you want to talk to our guest, Ethan Gutman, who is in London, live with us here on the Saturday Special. The phone number to call, as always, is 831-479-1080. If you want to ask a question using email, it's mz@ksco.com. And let's take our first call now, which will be none other than Andres. Hi, Andres.
Hello. Thank you for taking my call.
Sure.
My basic question is, what can we do here now to discourage this type of activity? And that question comes from my experience back in 2004. I took a field trip with my biology class in high school, up to the Bay Area. It was in the city. It was San Francisco, to a place called, I think the area is called Nob Hill, and it was the Masonic Temple on Nob Hill was hosting. I think the name of the tour was called The Human Body, and on display were many Chinese bodies pumped with latex so that the viewers could see all the veins, all the ventricles, all the little parts of the body. But you could see their faces sometimes too, with the skin peeled off and all that. And you could tell by their face that they were Asian.
Andre,
so I don't know.
That's a very astute question. That's incredible. Yeah, my last chapter in The Slaughter was on that exact issue. It's called, what did I call it? A Night at the Museum. Look, before I answer that one, though, the first one is what can you do about it? And that's a really good question, too. Look, there is something to be done. The fact is the medical world, politicians have already done something, in a sense. I mean, the Congress passed a resolution on this, saying that this is the evidence is mounted to the point where it's undeniable, that this is taking place and so forth. So they have
you
done
can find
something.
that on YouTube, but the media certainly hasn't picked up on it. Why is that?
Well, the media actually has. I mean, in a funny way. It's like, yeah, even the New York Times wrote 6 articles about this thing. They just weren't heavily noticed. It's China. It's out there. People are sort of like, well, I don't know what's going on out there. The part of it is just the it's China quality to it. But the people who really are the stakeholders here, who have all the power, are the doctors. Okay, the medical world, American doctors have more power than any other doctors in the world to shape opinions, global medical opinions. They're really respected. We have great medical journals. This is the heartland of innovation for the entire world. Okay, so I suggest that anybody who's listening, talk to your doctor. I don't care if it's your dentist. Just bring it up. When you've got when you have your mouth open, you go, have you heard about this organ harvesting? I mean, have you heard about it? Just starting there to bring it up with them so that they're getting to the point where they have to feel they have to have some kind of educated opinion on this. Because if they have to have an educated opinion, they will go back and start reading our stuff. It's all over the web. It's easy
What about
to
your
find.
insurance
Most
company?
of it's free. And insurance companies are a great example, too. But anybody associated with the medical world, these are the people who actually have more power than the politicians in this case. I mean, America's kind of in the middle of a trade war anyways with China. We're putting a lot of pressure on China. We're not going to start bombing the railroads here in China. We're not going to move to war. But the doctors can shame if there's enough of a groundswell, a grassroots, if the grassroots has the opinion that this is really an abomination and we really can't go forward anymore with the Chinese, inviting them to our conferences and so forth, letting them publish in our medical journals, this is what has to happen. Okay, this is what happened with the Soviet psychiatrists in the 1960s. They didn't have any contact with anybody in the West. They were ostracized. They were kept at arm's length because we knew what was going on. We thought we knew what was going on in the Soviet mental hospitals. In truth, we know a lot more about what's going on in the Chinese transplant hospitals than we ever did in the 60s. But the world, it didn't matter how divided the world was about Vietnam or the rest of it, everybody in the psychiatric community said, this is too much. This is a virus. We've got to quarantine it. Stay away. We don't have any contact with those guys. And that's what's got to happen here.
Thank you for
in
the
my
answer.
opinion.
Thank you. I got to go.
Okay,
I'm still going to answer your last question. You're right. Those are Chinese bodies, especially at the time you saw them. They were done by a guy named Gunther von Hagens, a so-called doctor from East Germany.
Jeez.
Wow.
Yeah, I know. It's wild stuff. And he invented plastination, this process of taking corpses and turning them into plastic exhibits. But he was having a lot of problems in 1999. He didn't have enough corpses. And that's when Falun Gong came online, and they started killing Falun Gong for their organs, and then he had too many. He literally had his pick of the litter, and he had bodies coming in. This is well documented. There are intercepted emails between him and his associates showing that, and to this day, if you go to his exhibit, take a look for the kidneys and the liver.
Are they?
They're missing.
Is this still
They're actually
legal? Like,
missing.
is it still happening in the States, or is this something that's been banned?
No, he
since
was doing
then?
this in China. He was doing this in China. That's where he produced those bodies. In Dali.
Yeah, but now they were on tour in the States. Is it still legal for them to?
It is still legal. Only three countries have banned it. Israel banned the body show. Prague, the city of Prague in Czech Republic, has banned it. I believe Italy or Spain put a ban on that show, but it is still allowed to go around the world. And I have mixed feelings about it because on one hand, I believe it's a great educational experience for for people to actually see these bodies and understand what's taken place here.
I'm sure with today's technology, you don't need any of that to learn how a body works. I mean, it seems like a like a money-making scheme so that they can perpetuate all the organ harvesting and legitimize it in some way. It doesn't seem necessary to me.
Well, he claims that he threw out all the Chinese bodies because they were suspect, and he's claimed that again several times, and he claims he has permission slips for literally everybody that's in those shows. That is probably not true, but I can't prove it one way or the other. Or at least my solution to this, and I've stood in front of the body show in Vienna and Corpswelten, it's called Corpswelten, and I said, give us the DNA, because there is DNA residue in every one of those bodies. And I said, let us try to match it. First of all, let us see if we can find whether they're Chinese or not, because that would prove whether he's lying, right?
Yeah. Well, just one last thing before I go. This field trip was paid for by the school district, so public money from California school system is being put into the Chinese death camp. System.
Was for sure, but you think maybe still is?
I don't know if they're still on tour. This guy is saying that it's still legal, so I'm sure there's potential for that. I'm sure there's plenty of money being, back and forth between the UC system, the public school system here in California, and China. I wouldn't be surprised if it is all I'm saying. I don't know for a fact, but it was back then.
These are individual shows. They have one of them is done by a Chinese guy who was the apprentice to Dr. Van Hagen's. The other one is the Van Hagen show. They both have an army of lawyers. They're incredibly wealthy. They've made scads of money. I don't know exactly how much off these shows. But no, that's another thing. I'd like to see a stop to those as well. I mean, that's a great issue. People should really be questioning what they're seeing in there.
So then we could also, aside from calling and talking to our doctors about the organ harvesting, we could also be talking to our state representatives, our state senators, and our state assembly members to see if they can look into this and maybe ban it on a state level.
That's right. I think it's a very vital issue. In fact, there's things the state can do that nobody else can do. For example, it's illegal to take bodies just around the world, right? You can't really do it. They're supposed to be buried. In fact, that's what the mayor of Prague tried to do. He gave an order. He said, bury these bodies. Just take them out of the museum and just bury them all. And actually got a big write-up in the New York Times just for doing that. Now,
hey guys, we're 20 seconds to the top of the hour newscast. Yeah. Andres, thank you for your call. Ethan, please stay with us over the break here. And we've got Dick. Please don't go away. Dick in Santa Cruz is on the line for U.S. organ donors. It's
60s with the lows in the mid to high 40s. It's now 11:06 and time to return to the Saturday Special with Michael Zwerling.
Griffin Queener.
Yes.
Would you do me a favor?
Sure.
It's freezing in here. Would you turn off that infernal air conditioner?
I'll see what I can do.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so let's see here. Ethan, you're still there?
Sure.
Good. Okay. Now, what we do here in the Saturday Special, it doesn't feel right to do the second hour unless we start it officially with our jingle. Okay, ready for our jingle? 3, 2, 1.
Oh, hello, darling. to hang up on you, but I'm sorry, baby, but I have to go. It's time for that wonderful record show. I'd love to visit, but you'll have to call back. KSCO has the inside track.
And our topic today is forced organ harvesting. Yep, it's a real thing that's going on in China. And there's another hour ahead.
I'm sorry, baby, but I really gotta go to KSCO Radio. Bye.
And we are very pleased to have as our guest today Ethan Gutman, who is live from London, where he currently resides, may someday again be a resident here in the United States. And before we broke for the news, we were in the middle of a I have invited callers now, 479-1080, that's area 831, or email mz@ksco.com. Had a great first call from Andres. Hopefully, Dick in Santa Cruz will add to the program. Hey, Dick, you're on with Ethan and MZ.
Yeah, hey, thanks a lot. Ethan, you're the smartest guy I've ever heard talk about this stuff. I had a question about organ donating in the U.S., but I wanted to tell a quick story that happened to me personally. My brother-in-law was in the hospital after getting hit by a car, and his stem cell, the base of his brain was dead. And so they announced him brain dead, and it was a disaster for the family. And they agreed to organ donating, and then after the smoke all cleared, they got a bill from the hospital for like $35,000, and they had to get a lawyer and say, hey, what's this? They took his lungs, his heart, his you name it, and they got out of it. But there's some real injustice going on. Obviously, what you were saying, if the person's alive, they're very valuable. And this has been talked about on Tucker Carlson. That's the only other place. And the Georgia talked about it several times, and I told this story on her show. In any case, I think I had a couple ideas. I wanted to throw them by you and see what you thought. I sincerely think we need some legislation on this. I think organ donors, there has been talk that, the people in the comas, they feel it when they get, disemboweled. So I think the hospitals really should pay the families and at least maybe support some kind of a reverse life insurance policy, paid out to organ donors, get them drug tested like the homeless guys or people in high dangerous occupations. The hospitals, there has to be an incredible black market, overseas medical travel for this. In the hospitals, they're trading these organs for big money between each other.
Well, I don't know about that. I mean, I would say that I actually think fairly highly of the American hospital system compared to a lot of others out there. Saying no, because let me tell you why I say that. I mean, the South Korean, we have actual cases of hospitals setting up people to get new livers and kidneys and so forth in hospitals in China, which I think is pretty sinister. In Germany, we have cases of heart transplant doctors doing something similar because they got involved with China early on. We don't really have good cases of that in America that I've found. Americans kind of setting that up, or American doctors kind of setting that up. Israel had a few cases of that, but then they were the first to ban organ tourism to China back in 2008. Right. They were the very first ones off the mark to sort of say, well, we can't do this. There's too many questions about where these organs are coming from. So in a sense, I don't think America's problem is there. I can't speak to the issue of whether there should be some money involved, because I think there's pluses and minuses on that, because you're sort of involving a level of corruption once money comes in. On the other hand,
that's the line, though, isn't it, Ethan? Isn't that the line
Well,
by everybody out there in the hospital? I mean, they say, hey, you have to save your fellow man. Come in here and let your brother-in-law that just fell off his motorcycle, we can cut him into pieces while he's still alive. I mean, seriously, Ethan, you don't think there's a black market here, and you don't think the hospitals are trading organs for big dollars, even though they don't show up on...
No, I do think that's going on, but I think it's a very, very, very small and minor thing. Look, one of the things...
Let's hope so.
Let me put it this way. One of the reasons, this is something that China, Beijing, advances this argument. You can practically set your watch by it. Every 2 years, they say, oh, well, there may be a problem in organ harvesting, but that's these rogue doctors and these shadowy organized crime gangs and all the rest of it. It's an excuse. Their thing is state run. It is state run.
Oh, yeah.
It's run by Beijing.
No.
They wet their beak in it. Every hospital wets their beak in it. It is a setup, and so they love that excuse.
Ethan, you did say it's lots of money involved, and the case where in my personal case with my brother-in-law, where the hospital acquiesced right away and said no charge. It didn't take much.
Right.
Didn't take much. So I say, think about that one. And I mean, there's a lot of stuff going on that people don't know about, and I'm not saying you're not a great investigative. I mean, everything you said about China and Falun Gong, of course, they went after people that were clean. Like they're going after for Saudi Arabia, they're harvesting their Muslims in China now. I mean, I understand all that. It's so cruel and so outrageous. Nobody has ever talked about this. And I wish you could get on some talk shows like with Tucker Carlson or something.
Well, I was just on Fox News just did a big segment on this, actually, I think about 10 days ago. They're actually very late to the party. CNN had covered this back in 2016, believe it or not. And BBC, which was the hardest nut to crack, believe me, living in London, it was infuriating. And they finally, last year, they suddenly just, they pulled all the stops out and suddenly, I was on World News Tonight there. So, talking about this, that's 80 million people.
Now, why is that, Ethan? Why do you think that is? Because there's big money in it.
Because of Brexit. Yeah, because of Brexit. No, it's really here. Okay. It's because they're looking at Brexit and they're going, the Foreign Office really wants to keep all the options open, and they have a fantasy that they're going to make a lot of money off the Chinese market. I don't think that's true.
What I'd like to say, I just want to say one last thing. I'm sorry for interrupting you, Ethan. You're great. I just want to say, everybody out there, you're thinking about donating your organs or your families, make sure you negotiate with a hospital before you do anything.
Well, I agree. I agree with that, and I also agree with what you're saying. People should be respected for being an organ donor. They really should be, and the hospitals should respect that.
Yes,
and that is absolutely essential. And one of the things that I hope will be a byproduct of what's going on in China is that it will lead to a kind of a tightening in the system here, that people will really look at this. This is incredibly valuable. What your brother-in-law did was he's your brother-in-law, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Anyway,
I hope it was so valuable. I mean, he led to potentially lives saved. People living another 20, 30 years.
I know. There's a sympathy, the empathy factor. I understand all that, but still, the bottom line is, I believe hospitals are taking advantage of people and families big time. That's all. And I hope you get your story out more. I know it's not politically correct. I know that the deep state or the globalists, they want to keep these organs flowing because it's big money. And I understand the battle you're up against.
Well, I think the big difference here is that in America, you get on a list and you wait, and you may wait 2 years, you may wait 3 years, you may wait 4 years. I have an old girlfriend in Australia who waited 5 years for a liver, and she finally got one. And she would have died within months if she hadn't. The thing is, in China, you can get that organ in 2 weeks or less.
Right. They can travel there and do it.
Well, you travel there, and the point is they kill on demand. What's still happening? America, that's insane. I mean, this is not happening in America. You can't get that organ. You can't get a matched organ because you got to wait for an OD. You got to wait for somebody to die. You know, you got to wait for somebody to be pulled out with the jaws of life. Something like that.
Right.
In China, they're not arranging that. That's the twilight zone. They're not arranging car accidents so that a heart can suddenly appear. They set it on a date. They say, come to China. Make sure you're at Friday at 4:00, and we'll have your organ.
Well, you said it yourself, Ethan. You said it yourself. The doctors in Germany, the doctors in Korea. This is spreading. I know it is, and there has to be some kind of legislation. Spreading.
No, you're absolutely right, and you're right to point to the issue because this is right. This is a virus. It will spread out of China. It's already spread to Vietnam, as far as we can tell, to some extent. It's spread to North Korea very quickly, of course. And, of course, anybody who's involved in this, and part of my book is on Taiwan, because it is even some of the cooperation, at least on this, has spread to Taiwan. And that is a tragedy. Taiwan's a good democratic country, right?
Yeah, sure. Hey, Ethan, have you talked to any U.S. Representatives or congressmen or senators about this?
Sure. Congressman Smith was the greatest advocate in this issue. Unfortunately, he's not there anymore. Congressman Chris Smith. Yeah. What a guy. Certainly Rubio he was initially skeptical of this issue, but now he's become, he mentions it all the time, and he's full force on it, and he really cares about what's happening with the Uyghur situation. So I believe we've got a lot of backup. And we even used to have backup from the Democrat side when you had Tom Lantos around and people like him.
Wow. Hey, we should call up Trump. Call Trump on that. Yeah. Get MZ to call Trump on that.
I think this is, I am less concerned about the political side and even the journalist side. I'm more concerned about the doctors. I am more concerned about the American Medical Association, which is very conservative about this, wants to pretend that everything's nice, goes to China. China invites them. Just the way just the way our host went to China, they treated them, I'm sure, beautifully. They took them to a bunch of Potemkin village hospitals, like 6 of them, where they... Yeah, exactly. And then before you know it, they're sitting out there going, these people shouldn't be saying stuff like that, and people like Gutman should shut up because, they're causing trouble.
Of course.
So that the whole NBA thing was so familiar to me. Okay.
You're sinking their ship, No one likes to have their ship sunk.
No,
wow, what a story.
These people are not in any way, I don't claim to be a great China expert or something, but I did live in the country for 3 years. Okay. And, these people come in completely naive. They don't even hire a local Chinese person to cut a deal. They just think they can do it. That's crazy. Even businessmen don't do that. They don't come into China and just go, I'll just cut the deal myself. Because they'll lose their shirt. And the same is true with the with the Transplantation Society, which got very involved in this, and just went along with everything the Chinese wanted to say. The Chinese said there's no Falun Gong being heard in any way. They went, there's no Falun Gong being heard in any way. That's ridiculous. Okay, that's the medical world is really the one which has to look itself in the eye here and say, how can you let this go on? Why are you cooperating with these people? You're legitimizing this, right?
I think there's so much corruption. I mean, look at who they want to control next. The government in the U.S. wants to control the medical system completely, and they have lots of areas to clean up. They were forced in California recently to list all their standard pricing because you can't find out a standard pricing on anything. And then, of course, you can walk into a hospital.
Ethan just gave some pricing here earlier today on our show.
Oh, okay. Well, in any case, if you go in with cash, you get it at about half price at most hospitals. If they'll still take cash, I mean, they got to deal with all the insurance companies that's so mixed up. Anyway, thanks so much, Ethan. You're terrific, and thank you, Mike, for having him on.
Great. Okay, Dick, thanks for your
call.
Thank you. 479-1080. Here's Steve in Pacific Grove. Steve, you're on with Ethan and MZ.
Oh, this is a depressingly fascinating show. Right during the break there, they were talking about all the Chinese protesters being rounded up, the Hong Kong guys.
Yeah, I was thinking about that,
What do you think those guys are I don't mean to interrupt you, Ethan. This is just a quick question. What do you think those people are thinking when isn't that what it's about, not being extradited to mainland if they get in trouble?
I think that's exactly what kicked this whole thing off in Hong Kong, was that they were saying basically, that Hong Kong, anybody from Hong Kong could be taken away and subject to mainland Chinese law. And that's a really good thing to get on the streets about. I think the students, not students, but the young people have gone a little nuts at times, but, they've been dealing with a police force that's practically, it appears to be now half mainland at this point. Having said that, I don't think these people are in, immediate danger of being harvested once they're arrested in any way in Hong Kong. Hong Kong is still Hong Kong. It is a very separate system.
Not really.
Not really, but it is still under. Look, it's got a very strong free press in Hong Kong, and it is completely different than the mainland, where all the information is controlled. So I don't believe.
Yeah, I'll give you
immediate
that
danger.
for sure. But I see it changing very fast because of this. The mainland is going to clamp down on this. They see their ship being sunk.
Well, they certainly do. I mean, I don't even know if I were in the mainland and I was Xi Jinping. I don't know what exactly I'd do here. It's a real mess for him.
Hong Kong. I stayed in Hong Kong for 3 or 4 days after I visited mainland China last year, back exactly a year ago, actually. And I had been to China. I had been to Hong Kong several times, including the first time in 1977, which was 20 years before 1997 when it went back to the Chinese. That's all they were talking about, even 20 years before. What's going to happen when the Chinese get it back at the end of the lease? So, but last year it wasn't too much different than I remembered. But now with all these demonstrations going on. Ooh, I see big changes coming. I really do.
Hey, thank you, gentlemen. This fascinating show.
Oh, you mean that's all you had, Steve?
Yeah. Oh, well, you guys know a lot more about that. I was just admiring the bravery of the Hong Kong dissidents since you brought that up. I mean, the extra layer there of not just being tortured, but being harvested.
Well, I think, the consequences are death, for this stuff. I mean, everybody the Beijing put down the law of the jungle in Tiananmen Square, and people just forgot about it. But they basically said, you stand up and you protest in our cities, and that's it. We can just go ahead and kill you. And they did. And the evidence is that it was about 20,000 people died in that incident, as they call it. So,
I remember.
Look, the fact is now we're talking really huge numbers because this has been this isn't as bad as the Cultural Revolution or the Great Leap Forward or, something like that, but it's up there. 250,000.
So not only do you quash opposition, you make money from the organ sales.
That's right. And it's both you have an incentivized system. It's funny. We were just talking about Halloween over here because the English are always complaining, Halloween's come over here and everybody has to go out and get trick-or-treating and do costumes and all. And I was like, what's the problem? It's your holiday. It's a Celtic holiday. And we Americans, we just figured out a way to monetize it, right? And incentivize it, right? Which is what we're good at, okay? Why don't you relax and enjoy it? But the point is the Chinese have monetized and incentivized something that's really disgusting and horrible. Some of the people who've died in Falun Gong are some of the smartest people in China. Some of the Uyghurs who are being killed. This is horrendous. These are top intellectuals of that society, and they're under this threat. And I mean, the evidence I'm picking up just from my recent interviews, just in the last month, with people who've gotten out of the camps is. That it's on the level of 25 to 50,000. That's a crude estimate. I don't know if it's right. It's a back of the napkin estimate right now, but 25 to 50,000 people per year. That's pretty bad. That's very, very serious. I feel the same way about Hong Kong. It excites me, and I'm terrified for the poor. For Hong Kong as well. And that day when they all came out and it was 2 million people in the rain with all those umbrellas. I mean, it was just so moving and, such bravery and courage. It's wonderful to see it. Wonderful to see that.
Yeah. Well, thank you for getting out the message.
Yeah, thanks for calling 479-1080, Steve. And nobody else is on the line right now, so it's just you and me, Ethan. Feel free to call in, anybody who wants to. This is a perfect time. 831-479-1080 or email mz@ksco.ca. KSCO.com. What's the weather like there in London, Ethan?
It's rainy and foggy, just like you'd imagine it, and dark.
Oh, that's right. So let's see. You're 7 hours ahead of it. So it's like 6:30 where you are now. And it's dusk, right? You said it's
no, it's not even dusk because we're much further north geographically. We're just so it's the sun went down about 5 o'clock here.
I see.
So yeah, no, it's I can see Canary Wharf. Canary Wharf's all lit up. It's normal. There's a guy outside. I can see him walking a dog right now. So I guess everybody's still around. No, it's normal here. And the Thames looks okay. It's not overflowing the banks, so we're all right. No, it's fine here in London. Look, it's interesting what your callers are talking about. You have very bright callers, by the way. These are great questions.
Oh, that's by design. I've had the station 29 years this end of January. And as soon as I got the station, we developed a rule that we have vigorously enforced. And that is the KSCO is for intelligent people only. We have a promo that says stupid people must change to another station immediately. So, over the years, it's caught on, and it's like I said, you've made an accurate observation, and I'm just giving you the background of that. Looks like we have another caller, Mike in Santa Cruz. Opt out of donor law. What is that, Mike? You're on, Mike.
Hello.
Hi.
Yes, it's Mike from Santa Cruz, and I just had an associate from another program. I'm really into talk radio. This is the first time I've ever called, but I think that in this country you should have to opt out of organ donation instead of opting in. In other words,
what a great idea.
Everybody should be in until they decide they don't want to do it.
That's what they did in France.
Who is making noise? Is it Ethan or is it Mike? Because it's terrible noise.
No, there's no noise.
That was me.
Okay.
Mike. Okay. I apologize. That was me. It's cocktail hour. I was just starting to. I was just knocking a little bit of ice out.
It sounds like you knocked it over.
No, it's a great point. That's what France did, and it's one way of handling this without actually offending the Chinese. Is just saying, look, we're not going to have an organ donation problem in our own country because we're going to have an opt-out system. The problem with it is that sometimes people feel somewhat belligerent about it because they feel like it's a pain in the ass to opt out of something. But I personally think that's a fine system. Look, as somebody who's studied this and has been very close to the coalface on this issue and has looked in the eyes of people who barely got away with their lives, I must tell you, though, I would way prefer it if America were to pass a law. Canada's right on the cusp of passing a law of no organ tourism to China, okay? They will join a bunch of other
How are they going to enforce that, huh?
Well, the fact is, once this gets in the medical system can kind of enforce it, depending on the medical system. So Canada is a reasonable medical system. It's reasonably ethical. It won't be perfect, but it'll be okay. Now, look, you can't enforce it because, people think of this organ tourism thing as existing with some guy in a trench coat. It's not. The guy in the trench coat's called Google. You can go on Google right now and say, help, I need a liver, right? Just those words, and Google it, and you'll find a discussion board in the first 20 or 30 hits, okay? And you get on that discussion board, and somebody in the first, hour or so will sort of say, hey, why don't you go to Tianjin Central Hospital in China? They've got really good, pretty good deals. And if you bring an extra 15,000, they will expedite your case, and you can get it within a couple of weeks to a month, right? You can get your whole problem sorted. So I think that's a real issue. And if we did pass a law here, it would be in America, it'd be fantastic. I'd like the UK to pass a law as well. We're lagging behind. I mean, frankly, Israel passed a law. Taiwan has passed a law, not very effective, but they passed a law. Italy did, Spain did, Norway has, Belgium has. So they're sort of popping in these countries, and to me, that would be the first order of business. And the usual complaint is, well, nobody from our country goes there. This is what I hear all the time. And I got so sick of it in the UK that I finally went through a doctor, said, have you ever had somebody who's gone to China? He said, yeah, actually I have. I said, well, you talk to this person confidentially, tell them I'll do a confidential interview with them and never give away any of their personal details. And the guy agreed. And I went up to Birmingham and bought the guy lunch, right? And asked him where he got it. He got it at Xi'an Military Hospital. That's where he got his kidney, okay?
Wow.
Now, did he know where the organ had come from? I said, well, did you ask? He said, if I'd asked, they'd show me the door. So he didn't ask. He doesn't really have that much information to ask. But at least now, when I'm in Parliament here, and somebody says, oh, well, we don't know that anybody goes, I say, really? What about the guy in Birmingham that I talked to, right? It's something, right? There's no excuse for it. They should pass this law now. You know what? They're not even going to pay an economic price from China because China knows it's guilty on this one. Beijing knows they're guilty. Okay? It's just a question of time. And this is part of what has to happen, is that process of just freezing China out, decoupling from China on this. We shouldn't be involved. We can't change them. Not really. But we can take away the money. We can take away the prestige, right? These people shouldn't. They are publishing in our medical journals. They are going to our colleges, okay, and learning surgical techniques. This shouldn't be happening. Okay? Not while this is going on.
Are you
not till this
talking
is
about
cleared up.
putting an embargo on training, Chinese nationals in our medical? What are you talking about here?
Exactly that.
Wow.
But only I would keep it very specific. I would just say in surgical techniques that relate to organs. I would just say, I'm sorry, that's something you can't apply for. You can't take that class. Okay? You can't specialize in that. I'm not saying you cut off all connections to the medical world, but you really can do this in the same way that Soviets did come over and learn at our universities at times. There were exchange programs during the Cold War, but not in psychiatric. No, nobody was allowed to come to, Harvard and go into psychology. You couldn't do it. You could do sociology. Couldn't do psychology. This is a big difference. You've got to be specific about what you're where we can't. That's a line we can't cross. The red line. It has to be real. So that's actually the subject of my next book, which is called Complicit. That's the tentative title, and that's going to be about how the world has handled this. So that's why I love the questions I'm getting today. This is.
Well, hopefully we'll get some more from the audience because we have almost a half hour remaining in the program. Ethan Gutman is our special guest, and I can't think of a more articulate person to discuss this very alarming and really horrific topic of forced organ harvesting that's going on big time in China.
You got to do your jingle. Can I get to do something? Because you got to do the jingle there.
Sure.
That's a wonderful jingle.
Sure.
MC. I loved it, man. I wish I recorded those things.
Well, I'll email it to you. It's no big deal.
It's a fantastic jingle.
When I bought the station, it came with a bunch of jingles. The guy who built this radio station, I think, was the first person to use jingles back in the 50s. And so we got a big reel of them that are just that's great.
Those are fantastic. Yeah. Now I just wanted to mention there are some organizations out there because one of the callers I can't recall his name right now. I think it was the first caller. He said, "What can we do?" Right? And
that's Andres. Yeah.
Andres, yeah. And one of the things, I don't believe that anyone can really be active on this issue or really be an activist on this issue unless they read a book or a report, at least one, just one, because what we're saying here sounds initially to a lot of people to be somewhat outlandish.
Yeah, like the Monty Python Meaning of Life movie. Can we have your liver?
That's
right.
Exactly.
I'm using it. I'm using it. Oh, God, but this is real. This is real
But
deal.
this is real. That's right. And that's why I say, either read my book, but there's other books to read. There's a book called Bloody Harvest by David Kilgore and David Matus. They're both highly respected human rights lawyers and politicians. They're terrific on this issue. And then there's a coalition, the International Coalition to End Transplant Abuse in China. And I co-founded that coalition. And we're really proud of it because we've got people from all over the world, top medical ethicists, lawyers, and so forth who've joined it. Even some of the witnesses, even a doctor here in London, a Uyghur doctor, his name is Enver Tohti, and he admitted for the first time to me, and I was in Parliament, I was giving a talk, and we opened it up for questions. He raised his hand and he said, I don't have a question. He said, I have a statement. I said, what's that? I did this with my own hands. So he actually had taken out 2 kidneys and a liver from a man who'd been shot on an execution field, and the heart was still beating. They shot the guy in a non-lethal way. As he pointed out, it's taken him years to say it, but the man could have lived. He could have extracted that bullet, and it would have been, the man would have been in critical condition, but he could have lived. But instead, he killed him, right?
My God.
Now, so this is based on real witnesses, real people. Again, Enver Tohti is a good friend of mine. We've driven all over Europe together and done all kinds of things and done lots of talks together. I really appreciate him, but I think he is the missing link, which shows what can happen to doctors under a system like this. And that is the bigger danger here. That's the danger that goes beyond just what I'm talking about. It goes to the heart of medical ethics in this world that we are, in a world where you're under surveillance, a world where artificial intelligence can actually pick up from the way you walk what kind of medical troubles you have, how viable your life is, how long you're going to live. There's all that stuff sounds great, but there are dangers to it as well, right? And it's going to lead to the medical profession has to up its game here in the ethical world, okay? And it cannot just surrender to China like the NBA, okay? Yeah. It can't do that.
Yeah, right.
Okay, they're so afraid. The medical world is so afraid of being left behind. Okay, that's their big fear. That China's the future. They're going to be left behind. They'll miss something. That's a terrible way to look at this.
You're talking about our medical system, huh?
Yes. Yeah.
Wow.
Well, you got it a little bit. You said you went to China last year, and it was amazing, right? It was so many buildings. They do them so fast. It's incredible, right? I agree with what you're saying. I know what you're talking about. It frustrates me in London. They start a building, it takes them damn near a year to finish it. In China, they're done in 2 months.
You could build the building in the blink of an eye, but the problem is getting a damn permit. Right. There's a lot of people who don't bother to get permits because they want to be alive to enjoy the building and not be dead first, just be long before they get the permit, Oh God!
Okay, but the difference is
Trump is changing that. Trump is changing, and our weird ass California governor that I have no use for, except maybe he's moving in the right direction about streamlining the permit process, because people in this state are screaming that it's unaffordable and it's ridiculous. The rents and the cost of real estate is insane, and people are leaving. Because of it, so our governor now has. There's got to be some string attached. I mean, because I don't know, he's making it easier to get permits for accessory dwelling units and things like that, and making it statewide. Anyhow, we don't want to get into that. We have a caller. I already told you all of our listeners are extremely intelligent because they have to be. They couldn't qualify to be our listeners and certainly our callers if they weren't. So one of our particularly intelligent callers that I haven't heard from in a long time, Marcella in Salinas, is online now. So Marcella, welcome back to the KSCO special.
Thank you, MZ. I just have a thought. He's talking about organ harvesting and big business in China. What does he think about all the aborted fetus tissues that are used to make vaccines? And also, China makes most of our vaccines, and if they have no qualms about killing people, and we trust them to make our vaccines, and now with the big push for all these stupid flu shots that are loaded with mercury and aluminum and aborted fetuses, and if he's pro-life, I like his comment on what I'm saying. Thank you.
Yeah, no, I would like that. I'd like to comment on that. I think that's a good question. I'm not as familiar as I should be with the vaccine issue. I will tell you one piece of information on that, which is that we're apparently looking at some bizarre testing going on the Uyghurs right now in terms of vaccines. Okay? And it seems to be that it's somewhat genetically engineered. That's all I'm going to say about it. So it's as if the Chinese are looking at this and coming up with vaccines or illnesses that somehow pertain only to Han Chinese, to a specific ethnicity. This is kind of frightening stuff because the Soviet biological weapons scientists were working on this years ago and had started to make breakthroughs in it. So I'm just going to say something about that. The abortion issue, of course, is an abomination in China. I mean, it's horrendous. Even today, even now, they've dropped the one-child policy, but that doesn't mean that they're low on abortions because single mothers get aborted as a matter of course, okay? And it's forced abortion. So it's
forced?
It's forced, yeah. It's ghastly, okay? So they don't have any problem getting a hold of fetal tissue. And there is a very simple question we can ask ourselves. Okay, after Planned Parenthood supposedly, well, I probably believe them. They say they pulled out of the fetal tissue, selling fetal tissue, right? A while ago, and they said we never really did it, but then, we're not doing it anymore anyway. So that's what they said, right? Basically, that was the outcome of the Project Veritas investigation. Where do you think people go for that stuff? Okay, Stanford University still has to do that research. Where is that market going to go to? And it's pretty obvious to me it's going to go to China. And we've already identified one hospital in China where I'm quite sure, because it was actually even in their brochures, that this is going on. All right. So we have to nail it down, but I think we can show at the end, and there's a lot of other issues to nail down, who are the end users and so forth. But I think this is a great line of inquiry. It's really, really important.
Yeah, Marcella is the leader in this quest here. I'm
just a complainer. My children are vaccine damaged. That's why I have so much interest in this. But it's ironic. The schools, even the Catholic churches, everybody rationalizes it because they say, "Oh, it's for herd immunity. It's for the common good," which is BS.
It is. Okay, but that's not actually for me. Because I don't have a spleen, because of that stupid motorcycle which hit me when I was 9 years old, and that was back in the '60s when they just ripped spleens out willy-nilly because they didn't really know what they did. I have a bad immune system. I have a lousy immune system. But you name it, I catch it. Okay.
Oh,
That's even more reason to not get vaccinated. Well, thank you very much.
Okay. Cheers.
All right, there goes Marcella. Thank you for calling 479-1080, Marcella. Our next caller, let's see who's been waiting longest. That would be John in Santa Cruz. Hey, John, you're on. John with MZ and Ethan.
I just had one statement and one question. I don't think we should follow France with laws in regards to people's organs. I think you're born with them, and you shouldn't have to give them up to the state. You'd pass. I think that's a very bad idea. And then secondly, why can't we sue the World Trade Organization over this or use the World Trade Organization to get in between this trade?
Well, there's an interesting thing with the World Trade Organization. There's some evidence now that the camps that have been built in Xinjiang, that is in northwest China, where they're holding all the Uyghurs, this is basically a whole country, a whole part of China, it's not really China at all, but it's been turned into a kind of armed camp. Those buildings, some of them are built with WTO money. And in fact, some of the camps that were the architectural plans were approved by the WTO. Now, did the WTO say, did it say this is going to be a concentration camp for Muslims? No, it didn't say that. But did they approve it? Yes, they did. Did the money come in? Yes, it helped fund it. But the group I think you're thinking of is the WHO. And I have a really mixed feeling on this. This is World Health Organization. Is that fair to say that that's also a group that could step in?
I would think so, but if you're trading organs, you're trading.
Well, they're not. They're not. Okay, listen, I have a lot of respect for what the World Health Organization does, because the big diseases, the big viruses, the big contagious diseases come out of China. It's always been that way. It's been that way all the way back to ancient times, right? You've got a very, very large population, very concentrated, and if some bug can make it there, it can make it anywhere. So, the Black Plague came out of China. Everything comes out of China that way, and so do the flus. The World Health Organization is in the business of stopping us, the rest of the world, from all dying, or at least 90% of us from dying, right? Because of some incurable antibiotic-resistant bug that comes out. The problem for them is that when the SARS crisis happened, well, that was an example of that. It was contagious, not wildly, but it was contagious. And it was leading to deaths. People were getting so sick, they were dying. And it was completely antibiotic resistant. The WHO arrived in China looking to interview and examine patients, and they couldn't, because the Chinese authorities hid the patients in abandoned hospitals and moved them around as if they were missiles, okay? Contraband missiles or contraband or something like that. The WHO learned its lesson. You go to China, you kowtow, okay? You kowtow, you say whatever the Chinese want, and you don't get involved in issues that are political. And that's what they've done. So they have been resistant on this whole organ harvesting issue. I don't believe they're making a profit off it, anything like that. As I say, I have a lot of respect for what the WHO's mission is in this case. I think it's more important than the mission I do. But they should stay away from political issues, and instead they've stuck their neck in sort of saying, oh, China's reformed on transplants in 2015. That's garbage. That's not true. All of our information shows the transplant industry is booming in China, and that there are new transplant hospitals going up every day, and that there is no change in the wait listing time. In fact, we have examples of 4-hour emergency liver transplants. That means you come in, you're having an acute liver crisis, and they kill somebody on your behalf right there, like a lobster at a restaurant.
Jeez,
okay?
Come on.
Okay, no, I'm serious. And this is real, and this is recorded. This is from Chinese sources. They write this stuff up. They're proud of it. Okay, they brag about it on their websites. Or they did until about a year ago when they finally realized we were taking everything and putting it out there. The point is, so the WHO is a big answer, potentially, to this. What I'd like to see in that case is just the neutralization of the WHO and the neutralization of the WTO. They shouldn't be giving money to China. The WHO should stay clear. They have a mission to do in China. They'll have to do that mission, but they don't have to go along with everything. I'll give you another example. The WHO doesn't allow any Taiwanese doctors to participate in that process. What's that about? What? Because China's got a bug about Taiwan? That is absurd. This is one of the great medical systems of the world. It's absolutely disrespectful and wrong. Again, it's another example of how the Chinese just take these organizations and just crush them and mold them into something that's unrecognizable, really. So I think that's something that really, really worries me, and something that's going to be a focus of this upcoming book. On the WHO and the rest of it. As I said, I have the most mixed feelings about them, because what they're doing in China is absolutely legitimate and protects us all.
All right. John in Santa Cruz, thank you for your call to 479-1080. Here's our next caller, Steve. Or is it? No, it's Colonel Terry, excuse me, who wants to talk smart. The implication, Colonel Terry, is that up until now, it hasn't been smart talk, and it has. I'm sorry.
No, actually, I said I wanted to say something smart. No, it has been smart, and I compliment many of your callers. And I compliment your guest especially. The man is both astute and he's a caring person about the impact on our planet, criminality, immorality, and grotesque greed in China is inflicting on us in the field he speaks about. And we have to decide, I'm sure he would agree, he's got somewhat of a corrective strategy he's proposed. We have to just expose it. And the Chinese never had any intention of honoring their commitments to trade with us honestly and not rig their currency and steal our patents and so forth. I compliment Trump for exposing that, but he could do it far more effectively. More importantly, Doctor, are there some public policy legislation, question one, we and others should pass outlawing, letting China, if you will, send us stuff that they're immorally, unethically obtaining medically? Can it be done?
Well, it's simple. You don't even have to pass laws in some cases. I mean, the medical journals that are out there publish Chinese studies of transplants, okay, of new techniques and this and that. I mean, this is unbelievable because we happen to know, if you look at the same journal article sort of appears in slightly changed form, and it's always dealing with the same 50-odd people. They're all obviously either prisoners or prisoners of conscience who were harvested for their organs. That stuff shouldn't be allowed in our medical journals. I mean, it's completely unethical. Okay, it's the journals have been afraid of China's wrath if they sort of say no, or China will get very embarrassed and very angry, and they don't want to say no. This has been a serious issue that my coalition has taken on. We've made some progress with it, but we'd like to see every single Chinese article that was done on harvesting and transplants simply removed from the records.
And the name of your coalition, sir?
Is ETAC. It's International Coalition, the International Coalition to End Transplant Abuse in China.
I would pronounce it ITAC instead of ETAC, because people might think it starts with E instead of I.
Well, End Transplant Abuse in China, that's it, ET. It's not perfect, ETAC. Listen, it's better than some of the other coalitions that have gone out there. There's one called WIPFIG. I mean, who can pronounce that? World Organization to Investigate the Persecution of Falun Gong. That's a Falun Gong-driven organization. They've done great work, fantastic research in this area. I agree with your caller. I think this is about exposing it. That's certainly what I try to do. But there's a lot of things that can be done without even the massive government intervention. Obviously, you want to cut off that organ tourism to China and just make it completely illegal. But mostly this is about the medical world. Simply saying, we can't have these people coming to the conference, okay? When we hold the big transplant conference in Hong Kong or whatever, the Chinese can't come. I'm sorry, you're not invited. They held it in Spain. They had the top guys there. The Vatican has gone along with this. The Vatican has made a deal with the Chinese on bishops. And part of that deal was they wanted to believe that there was no illicit organ or forced organ harvesting going on in China. So they held several conferences trying to prove that.
Yeah, I saw a YouTube thing this morning on.
I compliment you on your work, and the Catholic Church being hypocritical is no surprise.
All righty, Colonel Terry, thank you for calling 479-1080.
Thanks, Colonel.
I think Steve in Santa Cruz will be our last caller. Go ahead, Steve, you're on.
All right, I think I can bring this full circle here. Life is cheap in China, and it's cheap in Salinas, too. It's the murder capital of California. But my main point was if the left gains control of the government again, if they were to win and the far left was to take control, could they decide that Trump supporters were criminally insane and start harvesting organs from them and maybe go after MZ?
Okay. Well, listen, I don't know. They don't like me very much, that's for sure, because I give a voice to everybody here. Thank you for calling, Steve.
Thanks,
I appreciate you.
Thanks, MZ.
Okay, you have a good one. All right, the first caller, Ethan Andres, just sent an email saying your guest just dropped a bombshell. Now, I don't know if he is trying to figure out whether he heard you right or what, but it says Chinese are working on an ethnic-specific weaponized vaccine to target non-Chinese and are testing it on the Uyghurs? What did you say?
The Uyghurs, yeah.
And he put a question mark and an exclamation point after that. Did he get that right?
He didn't get that totally wrong. Let's put it this way. I don't know that there's a vaccine or anything like that. What I'm suggesting, and I'm only suggesting this because I do not have the proof on this. What I have is some sketchy evidence of some doctors, Uyghur doctors that I have interviewed, who were forced to go out and take blood samples. This is way back in the 90s. And they had to take them from the very purest Uyghurs that live out there, the ones who have had almost no intermarriage with the Chinese at all, okay? And so they go to these schoolhouses way out in the desert, and they take blood samples from all the kids. And I asked them, all I can say is that I asked them, why do you think they made you do that? And they said they're working on a biological weapon. Now, I'm just reporting what I'm hearing from them, and I'm not ruling. I can't say that I can rule it out at this point. We do know that the Soviet psychiatrists who were working on this kind of genetic engineering sort of biological weapons, and it was a very active program, all the way to the end of the Soviet Union, a lot of them went to Iran. The Mossad started killing them in Iran, started blowing them up every time they pressed the ignition key, turned the ignition key of their car. And they fled, and some of them fled to China. Now, did they take their secrets with them? I don't know. But what I don't quite understand...
I wouldn't be surprised.
I wouldn't be so surprised. And all countries have some sort of bioweapons program. They have to. It's a big secret, but, you sort of have to have it. It's the poor man's atom bomb. It's out there. The possibilities are out there. And so if nothing else, you're looking for cures or something. The Chinese undoubtedly, they have a biological weapons program. Has it ever occurred to them to want to remove the population of Xinjiang, which happens to be sitting, this is the Uyghurs, which happen to be on pretty much all of China's energy resources for the next century? Well, maybe. I don't know. Would they ever use it? Well, probably not. But, and to prove this is very, very difficult. But is it true that they have that is connected with vaccine work? It could be. I don't
Ethan
know.
Gutman, you've been one of the best guests ever on the KSCO Saturday Special. It's an honor to get to know you, and I'm sure I'd love to talk with you more, but we've gotten to the end of our program. What are we going to do? We're going to play a jingle. We're going to play a jingle that hopefully you will like. Maybe not as much as the other, but this is the jingle. This is our That's All, folks jingle.
That's all, folks.
You're listening to KS. 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 You're listening to KS.